Hi. Hi. And welcome once again to What's the Damage, companion show to the incredibly well-known and popular real play D&D show, Roll for Damage. We're big in Australia. We had another emotional one on Friday as our heroes got sort of arrested and had to come to terms with the multiple murders that they did for reasons that seemed good at the time and seemed less good in hindsight. That's often how murder goes. Restorative justice won the day, though. Oriana got told off. Perry said her piece and had her moment in the sun. Unfortunately, she's not on today. Sad. And Quinn was faced with a fundamental question which plagues a lot of people, which is who do you want to be as a person? We'll be talking philosophy tonight. As always, stick around after the stream for brand new update links and resources. I'm your host, Truth Venson, and this is What's the Damage? Hey, welcome back. Joining me today is our wonderful DM, Serenity, and the always exciting Chad, who plays Quinn, who's been having some fun lately. So we certainly had an interesting episode, ups and downs, some diagonals. What's the damage?
I mean, fun is a way to put it. Fun and interesting. When everything interesting, like I keep thinking of the movie Serenity, where the line is going to get interesting. Define interesting. Oh God, we're all going to die. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
feel
always
like it's
think
an
of the
apt
Chinese first.
description.
I
May
always
you
think
live
of
in
the Chinese
interesting
first.
times.
Yeah, which we do.
Yes,
So,
yes, we do.
okay. So, I feel like you all get arrested a lot in this campaign. Um, yeah. So anyway, Chad, Quinn was semi-catatonic for the first bit of this episode,
Yep.
perhaps understandably. But I actually want to backtrack a little bit because you weren't on last week to the end of last episode, which saw Melora crying her poor little god eyes out as
Mm-hmm.
she thought she'd lost you for good. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was also interesting. Yeah, I did not know what to make of it in the moment. I was just very just surprised, especially because we'd not seen the gods literally wandering around. And then all of a sudden, here is one. And oh shit, now she's really, really sad. And oh shit, now it's all my fault. So it was a lot to unpack. And it was very, very just cool in a way.
Yeah.
Like to actually see the physical manifestation of something like that just sort of show up.
Even under the circumstances.
Yeah, like
I imagine
objectively
making
cool.
yeah. I imagine making your god cry is kind of like making your mom cry if you like your mom and also times a billion.
Kind of, yeah. And
Yeah,
plus, like, Quinn was, raised by a single mother, so like the parallels are really strong
I
there.
know.
Especially it's the I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed sort of vibe as the,
Mhm.
crying and breaking stuff.
God. Yeah, that was a very cool moment, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit about the decisions that led up to that very cool moment at the end of the episode before last? Obviously, Quinn has been having a tough time emotionally lately, but why did he ultimately decide to run in and start cracking skulls in that situation?
I think partially because there didn't seem a way to like duck in front of the big guy and make him stop what he was doing. So the only thing he could think to do was just to sort of get over next to everybody else and just be prepared to try and provide support. And then, one panic cast of thunder wave later, and all of a sudden there's a paste on the ground where people used to be. And then shit starts getting weird.
That's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Decisions have consequences.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
Like
I like creating those situations where it seems very linear, like the choice seems very clear, like, oh, there's nothing else we can do. But actually when you in the moment, you're making that split second decision and you think you're making the right one, and there's not really a wrong one to make. There's just a decision and a path you take. And I like that, because when I talk to everyone after, they're like, well, this and this, and I was like, well, actually, though, they never attacked you. They drew their weapons and were protecting their stall. Had you have backed off and left Bane to do what he was doing, they would have not attacked you, and they would have been like, we don't care about you. You're like, you're leaving us alone. And they would have done their own thing and just protected against Bane. And then maybe the situation would have changed, or something else would have happened, or you would have had to find another way to get your belongings. And similarly with even going forward with him, it was, everyone thought like, we don't really have anything else. And everyone was worried about potentially going into the mountains to do the favor for Malcolm, if without, Oriana's spellcasting focus or Quinn's diamonds or whatever. And they were like, well, we can't do this. And so everyone thought like this was the only path forward, but really, again, stepping back, there were options, and there are always options, and it's never just one singular. I like I said, I don't like to make a linear world. I like to give lots of options and give players the opportunity to explore it. But I also do like to dangle the carrot and see if the players just
gonna take it.
Yeah, like hard focus on the thing that's right in front of them. So
yeah, definitely makes the players end up in some interesting situations.
It does.
Like the one you did end up in.
Yeah.
So you did get sort of arrested, but you didn't get thrown in jail or executed or even fined. You were instead given a chance to kind of repay your debt to society, or get
service.
exiled. Yeah. So Serenity, actually, I want to talk to you about this because you created a very interesting little society here. Can you tell us a bit about designing this city, the city of thieves and blackguards that has a very progressive restorative justice system?
Yeah, so I wanted it to be different. Like everyone knows, like, they go into the den of thieves, and like Dash was very much like this. It was like Dash was very much like the tried and true, like has its gangs, has its like underbelly and stuff like that. Whereas Cage Barrow to me was more of like, this is the place where all the outcasts have gone. And though they are outcasts and they've made their mistakes, and some of them still do not do the best of what society has to offer, they're also not the worst of what society has to offer, but they're not really welcome anywhere else. And I always go back to like, there has to be all amongst thieves in a sense. And how does a society work if no one works together? And so I figured there would be this group of basically mercenaries that have come in and basically decided to provide order amongst the chaos. And so that's kind of like what the Desert Rose has become. And the whole thing is they're not on the take. They just protect and help people sort of live in this place if they want to. And the rule is you don't steal from the Desert Rose because they're keeping things going.
Mhm.
But otherwise, like, as long as it's not a hard, terrible crime, they're generally not going to waste their resources like looking into it. Now, if someone comes to them and asks them to try to look into it, they're not going to not help them, but they know how difficult it is to deal with people in the city, and it has its own reputation. So most people coming to it understand like what they're getting themselves into. And so I wanted this place of this untrustworthiness, but also this underlying sort of sense of honor, of the group that's keeping this place running and keeping it what it is, a safe haven for these kind of like unmentionables.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like the differentiation you pointed out between Dash and Cage Bear also, because to me, Dash is what happens when crime is in regular society. Regular society just basically pushes it down, almost like a French press, and concentrates it really hard in certain areas where it just gets stronger and worse. And this was more like the idealistic, you know, like the I'm trying to think, with the one of the only good parts of westward expansion, where people would just find land that was literally unclaimed by anybody, even local people at all, and would just, people who had nowhere else to go would build somewhere to go, like regardless of what they were before. Like, here is a new place to be, like the the freed slave cities that were built. Is no one wants us anywhere else, and we deserve to make our own lives. Therefore, we are going to do this for ourselves wherever we can. It was a very, very interesting thing there.
Yeah. It's very like, I mean, it's like a mix of like Wild West and I don't know, so like the idea of like an honor code.
Mhm.
But I just wanted something different. I don't like to have the trope of just like, I love Jake because he will hardcore just be like, I don't trust anyone. I don't trust anyone. And he like hard again dovetails or tunnels into like, this is what these people are. And and then I turn it completely on its head. And I like showing them that like the world is such a multifaceted place. And yeah, some people can be not great, but that doesn't mean they're the worst of the worst. And it doesn't mean that there's no redemption at all. And so like that's kind of what the Desert Rose has become. Like a lot of these people have become sort of brothers in arms to protect the rest of this group and have come from hard lives or poor choices, but have now made something of themselves and still may not be the best of people, but they're doing what they can to make this place a livable society for, the groups of people who come here.
Yeah, I thought it was a very cool concept to have this, rough town that has that core of kind of honor, I guess is the right word, but like an honest core of people who are just trying to get by
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
trying to do their best. Everybody's trying to do their best, sort of.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so I feel like I ask you this every time you're on, but was this the players do what you expected them to do in these situations? I assume
I
the answer is
mean,
no.
It's usually no. We're very unpredictable assholes.
the once the so for this episode specifically, I literally had no notes. I had like just a piece of music and I was like, I have to do what I have to do here. But like previously, no, that um I thought that with the warning that Quinn had with the symbol after he had done what he had done in the alley, I 100% thought there would be like, this is way too easy. Like something smells about this. This is like, just does not feel good, especially giving them the opportunity to talk to Malcolm and him giving them like a way out kind of, and all they would have to do kind of is help him. And then he would help them. And then also with Campion and Baltaim finding where the guards went, I figured that they would do a little bit more reconnaissance or whatever and have like these 3 options in front of them. And I really did not expect them to charge ahead and attack a stall in broad daylight. Like I thought that like there's no way anyone's going to ever do that. No one's going to make that decision. And this person forcing a timeline on them and saying like, "Well, I'm leaving. Like if you don't do it." I figured like they'll be like this doesn't feel right. But they defied my expectations as per usual, and I just had to. That's why I didn't have a battle map, because I literally was not expecting that at all, or I would have been prepared. I just did. I thought it was like unrealistic that they would do it, but then yeah. For last episode, I had an idea of what would happen. But I wasn't sure what the players ultimately would choose to do, which is why I really didn't set anything up. When the decision that they ended up coming to then dovetailed back into where I originally thought that they would go. So they've kind of come full circle into like a place where I think they would go, and I'm like more prepared to handle like this next situation. But yeah, the roundabout way that they got there was definitely not expected.
Expect the unexpected. Chad, so do you think that your group's punishment was fair? Because there was actually some back and forth in the group as to whether you should, take your licks and go hunting or just fuck off and leave forever.
I mean, I feel like the punishment is definitely fair, considering the fact that we did kind of sort of perpetrate a very small massacre in the middle of a marketplace in broad daylight and all that. And, while Quinn was not really participating in the whole argument, he's 100% for the idea of you did something wrong, now try to do something good, not to make up for it, because, I mean, you can't really always make up for the wrong you have done, but you can try to balance the bad with good things in other places to just sort of get sort of like a karmic neutral gain sort of thing. But
sorry,
I mean, I figured most of the arguments seem to just be coming from camping like, no, I don't want to work with thieves, let's just leave, screw everybody. But yeah, no, the first one was definitely fair, and actually,
quite lenient.
Well, not only lenient, but it makes it so that we can actually do something to balance out the wrong that was done as well. So, it's a nice way to work it out.
Awesome. Okay, so now let's talk about Quinn's very big moral dilemma, which has been going on for many episodes now. So Quinn's a very special boy who got a lot of personal attention from not one but 2 gods last episode. So before we dive into other things, is Quinn does he have a sense of how big a deal that is? Because I don't think in this world you get that much attention usually from your deities. Or are you too distracted?
I think really he isn't thinking about that all that much right now, because it's more of his focus is now on how to change and improve and try to be a better version of himself. He's not so much trying to think about, I literally just got a talking to from 2 separate deities and threatened in a very specific manner by one of them, and how big of a deal that actually is. Player perspective, yeah, no, that is definitely a big deal. Character perspective, he's like, it's in there, kicking around someplace. It's just, he has not yet come to grips with it, because he hasn't had a chance to think about that specific thing. It probably will come up at some point for him, like, oh shit, that is important.
There. Okay, so when Quinn was, in the presence, essentially being asked to choose, was there there a moment of temptation for him when he considered just like, or when even you as a player considered just fully going over to Bane, who made a decent argument for himself?
He did make a very compelling argument. And I think had that argument come at any other time, there may have actually been some conflict and debate. But the fact that it came right on the heels of him doing something that literally broke the heart of the deity that was the only reason he was alive, as far as he knows, and what that ended up costing him, it made him actually stop and think about what he was doing and focus more on the present, not on the thing he was trying to get, not on the things that he has done, but more being in the now and trying to choose based on what is happening in the moment. And while one option seemed very appealing because it would be immediate results and exactly what he wanted and no questions asked, that was the exact offer that was made when he was told, yeah, I know where your shit is. Come on, let's go get it. We might have to kill some people, by the way. Just don't want to bury the lead there, but there will probably be some violence and bloodshed. Let's go. Come on. It'll be fun. Get a lunch. And had it not come at that exact time of like, that was the offer that was made, and he saw what happened. Like the easy way led to a lot of pain without that much of a boon in the end. Like he got his stuff back, but there was a cost.
It's pretty light cost though. If you don't care about killing people, you got your stuff cheap.
That's very true.
Yeah,
that's very true. But there really wasn't that much debate for him at the time, because there would definitely be more that he wasn't counting on and wasn't bargaining for by taking the easy way.
Mhm.
And doing it the hard way, there's more, it gives more time and more chances to try and figure out what exactly he's trying to do, because he's still basically clueless about what he's supposed to do and how he's supposed to go about it. And just getting everything needs in the moment, like all the power needs to go and right the one wrong is trying to right, means like, well, in about 15 minutes, I'm going to go and I'm going to try and do this thing and have no idea where he's going, what he's doing, probably end up dead. At least this way, also, he will learn more about what he's supposed to do and hopefully figure out an actual solution instead of just, I'm going to go there and hit stuff until I fall over.
It's one way of doing it. So
It is.
why did Quinn ultimately choose Malor? Was that just he wanted to be the person who chose Melora? He felt like he owed Melora? Was it something else? What was his internal process there?
Well, that was part of it, because he does feel like he owes her something, but mostly it was based on the interaction that he had with Bane, with how he offered the solution that was, come this way, do incredible violence, and you're going to get what you want, no problem. And then was very proud of him for doing said violence on an unarmed civilian right before. And the things that he was happiest with that the party was doing seemed to be, in his mind, the worst things to be doing in that moment. And he did not want to be the kind of person who takes that solution every single time and who still just does the dumb impulsive thing, because this is the thing where he finally sees that is what this inevitably will net. The dumb impulsive choice after another will eventually paint you into this corner. And he ended up choosing to go with Melora just because the kind of person that he would like to be is so drastically different from the one that he would become if he did take the easy path. And he wants to be able to essentially be the man that is actually worthy of the trust that was put in him, and the kind of person who can find a way to, if not save, all of his family and people and everything. At least the kind of person who can do everything that is possible and hopefully make a difference in some way, not just the kind of person who's going to only get what he wants and then everything else be damned. So that's why he ended up going with her, because she was making the case of all things need to be protected, not just what you want.
Gotcha. Well, lots of work for Quinn going forward.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Do you think you're up to it?
I mean, we will see if he is, because he tried meditating for like a whole minute or two. So, yeah.
He needs to get Headspace. They do like a little 3-minute. We're not sponsored by Headspace.
But we will take the money.
Sponsor us. If you want to sponsor us, contact us.
Yeah.
Our contact info in our Twitch. Anyway, so Serenity. Serenity, can you tell us about DMing Quinn's extended moral crisis and sort of designing and running this very profound scene wherein Quinn chooses who he wants to be going forward? Very emotional.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this campaign is I always kind of knew the arc that I wanted to run for the whole campaign, and I knew the world that I wanted to build. But when all of the players came to me with their characters, the really interesting thing to me was like I could see the flaws in every single one of these characters, which I think makes them more real. Because as human beings in real life, we are ultimately flawed people. We have our vices and virtues. And I saw that there was no one character that was like over and above, like, an altruant, like, person who didn't care about anything but like others and only wanted to do what's best. Like, they all had their own sort of little natures, whether it be like ignorance or selfishness or impulsiveness or like, anger or sort of like fate be damned, like throw caution to the wind. Like,
I'm just raising my hand when shit comes up that ties into me, like, hello.
and so there was this dichotomy, and I knew that like each of these characters ultimately are going to have to choose what they think they know and what they learn, kind of thing. And all of them will ultimately have to choose, do they change or do they stay the same? And what does that mean at the end of the day? And so Quinn's, I had already had like sort of the dichotomy of his personality and yet this deity who had stepped in and kind of seen who he could potentially be. But ultimately it's on his shoulders to make that choice. And so this scene, I knew what these two beings represented. And the one thing I definitely wanted, similar to the Cage Barrow and how I created that society, was the understanding of like the destroyers are called the destroyers, and the history of the gods is written by people who have maybe biased opinions of like where you get your information can change what story you hear. And I always like this idea of like no god is truly good or evil. There are facets to who they are, and there are things that could be taken from any one of these beings and used for a dual purpose of striding forward in like the morally ethical way or the not so. And so I wanted to come forward with Bane as he's not just this like, evil, torturous, murderous killer that only wants the worst of society. Like, there are generals who have followed him and have strategized very well and have been, lauded in the annals of history as people who have kept their society going and are good, like ultimately good people. And there are warriors who follow his tenets and do things. And yeah, maybe there is some selfishness in the way that they do things, but ultimately their end goal could be a good one, and they could end up, achieving it. so when I had this, I knew that I didn't want to make it easy. Similar to how Avonhurst went with the trials there. I didn't want to make it easy for the players to just be able to be like, yeah, fuck you. You're a terrible person. Like, I'm never going to follow you. Like, I don't even want to hear what you have to say. They had points as to like why this was the case. And though I didn't have like dialogue or anything specific, I knew Chad's character, and I kind of understand the backstory enough that I was like, okay, this is how they're going to talk to him. And I also knew that I wanted Bane and Melora to be siblings, just because also the very duality of both their natures as well, and sort of how they see things through, and also show that even though gods can have their different philosophies, they also can still have like a familial bond and can still protect one another and maybe have each other's backs in the right moment. So I just knew that was going to be there, and I definitely wanted it to I wanted to drive the point home as to like how important and impactful this is for Quinn. Like, this is ultimately him having to choose to change who he is fundamentally. He's, I think, 25 years old, and for 25 years he's been this person, and he's always followed this path. You know, if a person's challenged him, he's like not back down, and he's like driven through them. If someone, told him he couldn't do something, he didn't give a shit what they said. He would go off and do it just to prove them wrong. And so ultimately he has to decide, am I still going to be that person at the end of the day? Or am I going to be able to like tamper that instinct to lash out and to like get my hackles up and step back and take a breath and have some patience and say like, what do I ultimately want to do in this situation? And where do I ultimately want to go? And so that's now the offer that he's been presented with. It's like, you're still being watched. You're by no means out of the woods. You have to prove by more than just flowery words that you want to be this new person. And by the way, given that everything that's happened at the end of this, there's still a choice to be made.
Yeah, which I feel like, speaking of the fact that was put out literally right at the end of the conversation, I feel like the fact that Quinn was like, what choice? Tell me now. Give me more information. I need to know this immediately. Immediately, damn you. I feel like that is a sign of personal growth. So, see? Baby steps. He didn't immediately jump on the one thing and just start trying to grab and shake a deal. Like, tell me the thing. Like an impatient child with Christmas presents, or with me, the actual adult with Christmas presents.
Well, I know the player wants to know. The player always wants to know what they're getting into, but yeah. Well, yeah. And so yeah, it'll be an interesting. But I will say, like, as a DM, I had no idea how that scene was going to play out. Like, I knew the general beats I wanted to hit, but I also wanted it to be fulfilling for the player as well, and for the character and their growth. And I feel like that scene went the way that I wanted it to, and I think got across the points that Quinn needed to understand, and also that the player needed to know of like this whole backstory that was going on with him and the character that he created.
Yes, I also feel like it was successful, and I was the other half of that scene, therefore complete success.
There we go, 100%.
Yeah. 100%, guys. We did it.
We did it. Achievement unlocked.
Pack it up, go home.
We got the trophy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so I actually had a fan submitted question which came in late today. Woo. Anonymous asks, would Quinn ever switch gods just because the new god had a cooler symbol?
How cool are we talking? I mean,
very cool. Very cool. This is not the question, but I am extrapolating extremely cool. Coolest you can think of.
Coolest you can think of? Yeah. I mean, he'd be tempted. He'd be real tempted.
Melora, your swirl sucks. I'm going with this like ultimate cool like celestial being that's like drawn on here. It's so intricate.
I'm gonna go with this one that's basically like a bear with chainsaw hands that's fighting a larger bear.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated symbol to fit on some chain armor, but yeah.
It would be like a Frank Frazetta Van painting of a holy symbol. It would be glorious.
Someday you'll find your chainsaw bear god.
One day.
Someday.
One day. Yeah, fuck Bane. We're going with the Chainsaw Bear.
Or Melora. Yeah, screw them both.
Yeah.
All of them. That's the whole pantheon.
I feel like a
close.
bear with chainsaws for hands would be like the combined deity of Bane and Melora.
Melora,
because
yeah.
Honestly,
you've got the bear for Melora, but then you've got the fuck you chainsaw hands of Bane. Like, this is what his holy symbol should now be. Because
That's what Quinn's gonna. He's gonna be like, I refuse to choose. You gave me this dual symbol, but can you just
this
change
is what
it
I'm
to
doing now.
Yeah, but you instead of the hand with the swirl, can you change it to a bear with chainsaws? That would be better. Thank you.
He holds up like a really bad little sketch.
Yeah,
I drew it.
You're gods. You could do better than this. Come on.
He's just gonna hold up a crayon drawing. It's gonna
Yeah.
look like a 5-year-old made it. I drawed
Oh, I
this.
love it.
You make now.
I love it. Okay, we're moving on to our
Okay.
topic for today, which is improv. So what is the essence of D&D? It's improv and math. And math would not be an interesting topic for most of our viewers unless I've drastically misunderstood the fan base. So instead, we're talking about improv. Now, first question, have either of you done real improv, like theater?
I have not. I've wanted to, but the opportunity just has not been there. You know, because either time or money, or the combination of time and money, of like, and being able to find something to do. So I haven't done it, but I've watched hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hours of improv. Like, I absolutely fucking adore Whose Line Is It Anyway? Like the British version all the way up through the various American iterations as well. And I've watched enough of it that I feel like I at least understand it so I can try to emulate it.
What do you think? Do you think I've done
Probably
it or
not. You seem like you're not a theater kid.
Really?
Yeah.
I literally
done
told you
improv?
I'm a Broadway junkie. Yeah, I have done improv
but-
and theater.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, what have you been in? What place have you been in?
Oh, I did like Oklahoma back when I was in high school.
Right, 'cause you
I did
sang.
like a fashion show, like where I like played with my band and stuff like that. I was in commercials. I was in Saving Bobby Fischer, the movie, as an extra.
What?
So yeah.
I completely
done.
Damn, you
misjudged
keep
you.
getting cooler.
Pardon?
So, damn, you keep getting cooler.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that was when I was very young, and I
don't care.
And I, you know, like I did all of that stuff, and I think I was in like an old Dutch commercial, which was hilarious. But yeah, I mean, like once I got into maths and sciences, and I was like, well, this is more of a steady paycheck. I was like, yeah, theater's fun, but probably not going to pay my bills when I get a bit older. So, and I
Theater's fun,
loved,
but I
I
sure
loved,
like money.
I loved math and science. Well, no, it was like love. I loved both, and I was like, yeah, I'll do the one that's probably going to be more lucrative, and I'll still love it. So yeah, I ended up not sticking with it, but I did do improv, and I loved it, and it's a lot of fun. So
Yeah, I think that was my own prejudice going through. I thought you were too cool to be a theater kid. I knew you liked Broadway, but a lot of people
such
like
a
Broadway.
nerd, though. I'm such a loser. I was such a loser all through school. Honestly, I had like no
Hey.
friends.
Really? Okay. We're not going to get into that right now on air.
It's not getting into my personal life. How sad it is.
It's okay. You have friends now. I also did improv, but not since high school. I was president of like the improv troupe for a while.
Nice.
We forget about that. That's in the past. I hate theater kids now. Anyway, but not Serenity.
Elitist snob.
I am. It's fine. Okay, so the foundational idea of improv is the concept of yes and, which I assume we're all nerdy enough to know about, which means essentially avoiding saying a flat no during a scene because that stops a scene in its tracks. You're familiar.
Yeah.
So do you think yes and is also an important concept like in RP, specifically in D&D?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because the hardest thing to do when you're trying to get into a scene and do some RP with someone is if you're just throwing stuff out and trying to get something going or some sort of interaction, and all you get is stonewalled with no. Like,
It's like, I
yeah, like, and it's just that dead silence of no, like, well, fuck, now what? Because it basically just puts all the burden back on you to try and come up with more stuff to try and keep things moving. Because if the person's interaction is only, I don't wanna, then that's pretty much the end of their dramatic wellspring. So you got to
Yeah,
try and figure out something.
I think within reason. I mean, there are some situations where it's like, yeah, okay, but you might not want to. It's like, well, I think I'm gonna try and jump off this cliff and like spread my arms and flap them really, really hard, and maybe I'll fly and won't splat on the ground. And it's like, you can try that, sure, but
Mm,
you might get the result that you get might not be the one that you want. Um,
right.
I think
Well,
as a
that's
DM, like at least for me, I always try to give multiple options for the group depending on which way they want to go, and even as a player, try to make sure that everyone can like work together. But like at the end of the day, there's also like that's why we have like roles and stuff like that, is to also see some of your ideas may be really wacky and weird and maybe not make a lot of sense, but you give that role to see, hey, if you do really well, then sure, like let's work this out and figure out how this becomes a thing and how this like becomes an interesting, funny, freaky, weird, creepy scene, whatever it is. um but I think there also has to be give and take in every improv. And also I will say, especially in like D&D, you have to read the scene and the people that you're playing with as well, because just like in improv, there has to be a safe space for like everyone to perform in. And so you have to understand, like, if you're going down a certain direction that seems to be the direction that most people are averse to, it's likely that they're not shutting you down, but maybe there's merit to like why they're stepping back from it. So I think there's a give and take, but yeah, you essentially have to be open to every possibility. And that's why like the majority of DMing and even playing is all improv. Like, what do you know, you maybe have this point that you need to get to. How are you going to get there? Let's figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
let's think of the
Because
wide
also,
wide and wild and weird ways we can do it, right?
yeah, 'cause also one thing that there's not just specifically with DMing, there's not just the yes and, there's also no but. Because instead of giving the flat stone wall of no, which is in D&D terms, go fuck yourself, you can't, give the idea of no, but you offer a redirection off of no, you can't do this, because if you want to jump off this cliff and you don't know how to fly, you are going to fall to your death because you're stupid. But here's a different thing that you could do to traverse the gorge that you're trying to get across. Like, ropes have been invented in this world, and you could try
There's
one
a
of those.
mountain goat
There
over
happens,
there. Yeah.
yeah, there happens to also be a tree here and a tree over there, and you could be the person that invents the zip line. Like, just put stuff like that out there, and it's the whole idea of
Hey.
no, you can't do this, but there's other stuff you could do.
Yeah,
It's like
I'm glad you
the
brought that
little
up.
brother of yes and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's definitely definitely a good concept in D&D specifically, because I don't know, I think of D&D as slightly more structured than straight improv, because you do have dice and the dice can say no, even if the other players probably don't usually say no.
Oh,
but
sure.
but no but is an important concept, especially because everybody has characterization to consider as well. So you can't say yes to everything because it wouldn't necessarily make sense, as Serenity
Right.
was saying. But overall, yes and no but.
Mm-hmm.
Cool beans. Okay, so you're both DMs. So obviously you improv a lot. I know Serenity last episode, obviously all improv. Mildly planned improv. Chad, you've showed me your lack of notes as well. So when it comes to improvising mid-game, is this something that's always come like naturally to you, or did it take practice to make it something that flowed?
I mean, for me, I usually just put myself on the spot as much as possible to make sure I can do it. You know, like I will go into an entire session I'm going to run with nothing really written down and just the big idea of what I want to happen overall, and then just what makes sense right now. Okay, this, and then just run with it. You know, like I'll prepare the very important things or the very big things that need like intricate detail. Like if there's something with, you know, traps, like big traps or puzzles that have to be solved or things like that, you know, I'll get that written down, but I leave everything else around it loose just because without the rigid structure of these are all the things that I have to hit here, that means that when somebody does make an odd decision or does, you know, do the thing I don't expect, I can react more quickly because I didn't have anything planned for this. So what makes sense to happen right now? Gut reaction is Manticore, and then just go with it.
Hey. Manticore.
I I can do it. And it's fine. I generally like to have a little bit more understanding of like what I'm trying to do. Um in a situation like last session, I still had my general idea of like how I wanted to bring everything back around. So as long as I kind of have like my major kind of like beats, improving isn't too difficult. I think like no DM works off of a script. It would be impossible. So there's always improv. Like even if you know, okay, there's a store and the store owner's name is this, and they're like a gnome or something like that, or a halfling. Like that conversation that they're going to have with the players, if the players actually want to, you know, do more than just, okay, I buy this, this, and this. If they want to actually have a conversation with them, or if you know this is a conversation they have to have because there's like a quest or an adventure that ties off of it, that's always going to be improv anyways. I generally like to have more of like that so that I have an idea of like what players are walking into. But sometimes, you know, you get those sessions where the players don't go at all where you're expecting and everything has to be improv. I'd say like the hardest thing for me that I've gotten better at is like thinking of names on the fly, just like off the top of my head for like NPCs, and descriptions of places and stuff. Because you know, generally I try to like write that stuff down so that I can be a little bit more eloquent with that stuff when I'm describing it and paint a better picture. But I think I've gotten a little bit better with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think it comes to, it's one of those things where like I was super nervous. I think I told all the players last session, I was like, I have no idea how this is going to go. I'm so nervous. I'm going to fail everything. I feel like I haven't DM'd and like, I still get like stage fright when I DM because I want everyone to have a good time. And I don't think that goes away for any DM. But yeah, I think improv comes naturally to any DM because you kind of have to do it every session, no matter how good your notes are, you know?
Yeah.
That's the game. Yeah, so do you guys have any advice for like new DMs who are not perhaps confident in their improv skills and are worried about players going off in unexpected directions that they haven't planned for?
Yeah, so this is I mean, so the things that I like to have is I like to have general encounters that you can kind of use anywhere. I have a lot of those where even if the players go in some other direction, I can still slot it in somewhere. And I find encounters are a nice way. Like if you feel like an RP section is going really, really long and you as a DM need to like kind of regroup and rethink, like putting and like even if it's an easy encounter somewhere where the players are adventuring to kind of like break up all of like the skill stuff that they're doing or the investigation or whatever, can help you kind of like reset and get yourself settled, and also gives the players something to interact with and do that kind of breaks up the scene. So generally I always say to like make a few just like random encounters that you can slot in like in any kind of environment that would make sense, and have those at the ready to kind of like throw at your players if need be to break things up. The other thing is to just have general ideas of the main things that you want your players to do, and it doesn't matter how they get there, but give them hints as they go. So if they go in some weird direction, it doesn't mean that you can't tell them that the Blackguard Fort that's just north of the city is in trouble and has been having, weird, the people have been having weird visions and stuff like that, and give the players that hint. And they could find it out from thieves. They could find it out from heading into a tavern and overhearing people if they have a high enough perception check. They could find it from, ex NPC, like wherever, but you can still know that that's the general direction that you want them to go. And that makes it a little bit easier to kind of play the improv out, because you know where the end direction you kind of want to guide the players to.
Yeah, I think the only thing I can say as far as advice is kind of similar. Is just know where you're going and don't care how you get there. Just as long as you, because with the Strahd campaign that I'm running for fun and that you guys are both in, I know what I want to be at like the end, literally the end of the entire thing. I know what that's going to be, because I just have ideas while walking the dog and I think that's a good idea. And I file that away. And now I've built the big bet of the whole campaign. And I don't give a shit how you people get there. I just know that you're going to eventually get that. And then as far as how, I figure the easiest way to make sure you do get there is just to literally build organically off of the choices that you make when they happen, to figure, okay, well, now you know this thing. And now you're going over here where this thing can also happen. And then just sort of, it makes it feel more like a natural progression, as opposed to, I have a railroad and you're all getting on, toot, toot.
Toot, toot. Awesome. Okay, so how can you make improv seem seamless? Now, I've played under Serenity and I've never been able to tell when she's pulling stuff out of her ass.
It's really hard.
What's your secret? What's your secret?
I don't know. I don't really,
just be good. Be good.
I feel like I'm shitting the bed most of the time. So
lies and slander.
No, I mean, you guys tell me that, and so I mean that's obviously that makes me feel like I'm doing a good job. But I think the big thing is to just be having fun in the moment. I think if you're having fun and you're into the characters that you're playing as a DM, and you feel close to the world, and you just want your players to have a good time. And like for me, I look at the faces of all the players as I'm doing this stuff, and I see their reactions, and I can see like, okay, like they're into this, that kind of gives me energy and allows me to continue going with my scene. And sometimes I do stumble, but you're going to, and like, that's just natural. And you just pick yourself back up and kind of keep going. And a lot of times, like even stumbling, people don't know that you're stumbling because again, there's no script, there's nothing written. The players have no idea where they're going or what's supposed to happen or any of that kind of stuff. So that's the nice thing about DMing. Like I generally like when you DM'd, I couldn't tell like, if you knew the direction that we were going, or if you were like, oh shit, what's going on, and you were panicking in your head. Same with like Chad.
Always the second one. Always the second.
But that's the thing. Like I think it's like generally as long as you're not giving up as a DM and just throwing your hands in the air and just being like, I can't do this, and like I don't know where we're going, and I don't know what's happening. As long as you keep playing out the scene, I don't think anyone can tell. And I think everyone thinks like, they look at DMs that they watch play, and like, people like Chris Perkins and Matthew Mercer and stuff like that. And they think like, oh, they've got to have some like secret manual that they use. And I don't think they do. I think they're just like having fun at the table. And sometimes in their head, they're going, shit. How do I turn this around? And they're just continuing the scene and playing it off and being like, you know what? Fuck it. If this is fun, then let's just keep going in this fun direction and let my players have a ball, and we'll see where it ends up. So there's no secret sauce to it. It's just enjoying the moment.
Yeah, that's what I was. Plus, for anyone that's looking for ways to make it look like you know what you're doing as a DM, if you are struggling in the moment and you are trying to figure out, shit, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do? Some great tools to make it look like you actually know what you're doing are the stall tactics of pretend you're looking up a rule, roll some dice for no reason, and don't say why. Those two things,
Giving away
those are two of your
secrets.
biggest, those are two of the biggest tricks you can use. Just like, and also just, that's it. Just use the make it look like you're really thinking about something that was just said, like, oh, the player just did a profound thing. It's going to have an impact on the world. Meanwhile, Mike the Barbarian just decided to burn a tavern down for no reason. And you're like, that is your internal monologue.
The dice thing works better in real life if you do it like if you do it on like a Discord thing. You have to make sure your mic is picking up the dice. You have to make sure your mic is near the dice.
I have a nice large wooden dice tray that I'm hoping can be heard audibly whenever I'm sitting like, clink. If I really want to make sure it's heard, I have metal ones that I can just throw in like, now make sure you people know I'm doing something. Ding. Also, going off of what Serenity said with reading the faces of players, I personally have a bit of an ace in the hole. You're all familiar with Laura, who normally plays within a few feet to yard of me. She has a very expressive manner of playing, and she has also no poker face whatsoever. So it's easy to tell if I'm doing well or doing poorly by just looking over like, oh shit, and then regroup.
Awesome. Yeah, you got a little weather vane at home.
I do, yes. She is the canary to my DMing coal mine.
Romantic.
I know, isn't it?
Yeah. So do you guys think it's easier to improvise like RP situations or combat? Or are these things like hard in different ways?
Hard in different ways or easy in different ways, depending on how you look at it, because there's different requirements on what you need for either one. Like if you're trying to completely improvise combat, you need to be aware of what is the bridge too far for your party. Like what's the thing that's going to kill them? Is 6 beholders too many? Yes, probably. Let's not put that one out there. And like if it's in an RP situation, it's what can I not say to this person because it wouldn't fit the character, or because it would literally break down the entire scene of like, how the hell do you know that? And like, where are the few boundaries that exist of what can be done, what can't be done? So it's like, it's thinking on your feet, and easy and difficult at the same time, but just for different reasons.
I think combat's really hard to RP. Sorry, to improvise. Depending on the group, but generally like a large group, it's hard to improvise combat. Generally, if you're improvising combat, it's for like a story moment or a story scene, and it's less about the strategy of the battle, or like this is like a major boss or something like that they're like facing, or a major threat. It's more to fulfill a moment or to be a part of something that they're in the midst of in terms of a quest. I find like just generally like throwing things in one, it gets very confusing if you don't have like a map to kind of understand how everything is placed. And also players want to do a lot of times like really interesting or neat things. And if they don't have a visual of like what the environment is or like how they're going to interact with it, it can be difficult. I think, like I said, in certain situations, if you're having like a chase scene and you turn it into initiative and you're going to have like a combat moment, that can work improvised really, really well. But I think if you're going to have the players fighting 12 different things on a large battle map with like pillars and portals and levers and lava pits and things like that, you kind of want to have that all set out and visible for the players to understand what movements they're going to make. Because it really sucks to be like the monk and to be like, okay, I'm going to walk over here and attack this guy. And it's like, oh yeah, the giant ogre charges at you and knocks you into the lava. And you're like, well, I didn't know there was a lava pit.
Come from?
Yeah, I didn't know that there was one right beside here. And it's like, oh yeah, you put yourself there. And it's like, oh, well, it would be great if I could have seen that, So I think, yeah, generally improving, especially in a system like D&D where there's so much going on and there's so much you can do. I think D&D doesn't lend itself very well to improv large combat or like important combat. But there are a lot of systems that are very improv with their combat, because combat is like you get hit like twice and you're dead. And so combat isn't really a thing of like, like if you play vampire or werewolf or any of like the World of Darkness games, you don't want to get hit more than like twice because you're not living through it. So
you can get shot a bunch and it doesn't do very much damage.
Yeah, because you're a vampire, but you get like clawed by another vampire
Stabbing
and you're not doing very well. Yeah. So yeah, I think, but again, those moments, because you're 1v1ing like another creature, can lend themselves to easy improv, whereas D&D not so much. So
Neat. Okay, and that is exactly our time. So thank you both for coming on the show. Thank you to the viewers for tuning in once again to our lovely Tuesday show. Tune in again next week. Tune in on Friday for the next episode of Roll for Damage. Thank you to our wonderful artists and musicians, Sunbird and Lady Meows, who did our that's reversed. Lady Meows is the artist. Yes.
Yeah.
Lady Meows is the artist. Sunbird is our musician who
composed
our theme music. People did things. Thank you to them. Stick around. We have brand new links regarding quite a few of them, the runoff in Georgia, but also some other stuff too. So check that out, and we will see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.